Welcome to Front Porch Conversations. I'm your host, Lisa Williams. I'm so excited to bring this new type of podcast to you and virtual listening room. I think it's going to be an amazing space for women to come to find their authentic selves. I'm here waiting for you. Please join me for Front Porch Conversations.
The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity.
One of the things that is very important is to have a philosophy of giving back.
That the people who do this thing, who practice racism, are bereft.
Millions of people are locked up in the United States today.
Welcome to Front Porch Conversations. I'm Lisa Williams. Today we have the pleasure to speak with the Honorable Patricia Timmons-Goodson. She was the first African-American woman appointed to the North Carolina Supreme Court. So join me today for this conversation with the Honorable Patricia Timmons-Goodson. Ma'am, thank you so very much for joining us on Front Porch Conversations. I'm elated that you're here because I have been following you for 38 years. I hope it's okay for me to say 38 years. I have known your name. I have known your name when I came out of Campbell University, commissioned as a fresh second lieutenant, and was thinking about law school. They said, you should. There's a Patricia Timmons that you should look into and look at her record. That's the model for you to follow. And so I have admired you from afar, have watched your career, have watched you examine evidence on the bench, listening to individuals from both sides, weighing it, being fair, and then using the law to decide what was right. And it has been amazing to watch others see that character, your integrity, and how you hold the law so closely and so dearly to all that you stand for. Thank you for saying yes to us and coming to share a little with us about your new efforts to run for North Carolina's 8th Congressional District.
You are so very kind, and thank you for your gracious words. I find myself at this time in my life at just an incredible place. I'm very strong in my faith, and if God had told me, Pat, you can have anything you want, professionally, personally, at this time in your life, what would it be? And I could not or would not have come up with this. But that's typical for my life. I never would have been on the Supreme Court of North Carolina. I never would have thought about the Court of Appeals of North Carolina being an option for me. I would not have thought that almost 30 years in the judiciary of North Carolina would be a place for me, but he came up with all of this, and so I am just incredibly blessed. I've always been, and I continue to be blessed. But it's an exciting time in my life as we confront issues in this country that I never imagined. We're at an incredibly difficult place in our nation's history, and I'm glad I'm alive, and I'm glad that I have the energy and the experience and the desire to work to make things better.
You have to be in a place with that type of desire and passion to serve, and have the energy, and you do, and to just to know that there is a person who takes all of our concerns, not just folks on the right or left, but all of our concerns to heart and want to serve the people of North Carolina. That is what I'm hearing from the public. They want someone who can look at all of us as citizens and hear us and really represent the will of the people. So I'm thankful that you're in the race. I'm always thankful for people who serve. You know, as a military officer, former military officer, service is something that is ingrained in us. But I think we were sort of born with some of this, you know, will to want to serve. And I think the same thing is true about you.
Yes. My father was an Army sergeant. He was an airborne ranger, Lisa, tough as nails. And he served. He was courageous. I've often thought about what is it that would make someone leave all that they're familiar with, and of course I have my father in mind, leave rural South Carolina, all of the people that had nurtured you and raised you, everything you're familiar with, and join the military knowing that you might be called to go any place. I think that takes a certain kind of courage, and that was my father. And I like to think that I possess some of that courage. But Dad was in the Army, Mom was a homemaker. There were 6 kids in the family, and I was the oldest, so I've been serving for a long time.
Yes, you have. Oh my goodness.
I laugh and tell my friends I've always had 2 children, because in a large family there is so much work to be done that there has to be a division of labor, and so my responsibility was for my 2 younger brothers. It was my job to iron their jeans and their shirt for school, and to make sure that they had completed their homework and they were ready to go.
Those were tasks.
Those were tasks. And of course, my sister Sandra, who 11 months or so younger than I am, she had the other 2, my 2 sisters, and it was her responsibility. So Mom shopped, cooked, washed clothes, you know, took care of the house, and my sister and I did the other responsibilities. But that was a large, loving family. The military, I can't say enough about I'm talking of the Army, but the military in general. We were sent to Germany, then to Fort Bragg, then to Kansas, and it was in Kansas that Dad was sent the first time to Vietnam. And so this was in 1965. My parents decided that my mother should not be left that far away from relatives and support with 5 children. And so we returned to our home of South Carolina, and while Dad went to Vietnam, and stayed there during the first days of integration. So we were among those in part of the freedom of choice that first year that the Florence County, South Carolina schools integrated.
That had to be something.
The stories that I can tell you, but just have so much to be thankful for in terms of the military, because it did offer an opportunity for my family to travel and to go places we otherwise would not have gone, and come to know people from different backgrounds.
Doesn't that change a person? It opens one up to new possibilities, new thoughts, new points where we can meet in the middle and have discussions and laugh and enjoy one another.
You're absolutely right, Lisa. I believe that in large measure I'm the kind of person that I am because of that military background, because I learned early that I must extend myself to others. I couldn't wait for folks to come to me. Otherwise, you would spend that tour by yourself. You wouldn't have anybody to play with.
I know.
And so I learned to extend myself easily to others, and to get along with people. And that's what life and living is about.
I believe that totally. I want to ask you a little bit about, when we were talking about your father, did your father give you a piece of advice that you have always carried with you, or was there a saying or anything that you've held very dearly to you?
Sergeant Edward Timmons told me a lot. He died at the age of 43, but in the time before his death, he taught many, many lessons. The one that I'll point out to you is that he told me to, when I was upset and I would come, he'd say, "Get over it."
That sounds like a sergeant.
Get over it. Nobody's thinking about that but you, Ann. And in later discussions, it came out, his thought was, in life there are going to be people that will intentionally step on your toe so as to make you focus on that hurt, and that would take you away from what you should be focusing on. And he said, don't let people do that to you. And then often after they've done it, they've forgotten about it. They haven't thought a thing about it. And here you are,
Still nursing that toe.
and whatever thoughts came with it.
Exactly.
But that was one of the many lessons that I learned from my father, and I have carried that with me.
I think that's a lesson that is needed right now. Because it gets us all focused from the things that are most important. And so let's talk a little bit about why you have decided to continue to serve in the capacity of being a House of Representative for the 8th Congressional District here in North Carolina.
Lisa, I looked out and I say we in this country are in need of strong leaders that are willing to step up and to do what's right, more than we've ever needed in the history of this country. And so I stepped forward. Now, I served as vice chair of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. And during that time, I learned that it did not matter how important the policy decision or recommendation that you were making. It did not matter what the facts were that you found and how many people would benefit from a certain policy, unless you had a member of Congress that was willing to file the legislation and nurture it and shepherd it and defend it. Not a whole lot happened, because there are some aspects of our life in this country that require laws to be in place. And unless you had those laws, often the needs and the policies went unmet. And so that's what I resolved myself to do, because, you know, our citizens can only select their leaders from those that offer themselves. And if you continue to get the same kinds of people, the same perspectives represented, not much, if anything, is going to change. And so I have stepped forward. I'm offering myself. The citizens of the 8th Congressional District will have a choice, and I can live with whatever choice they make.
But you could not if you did not offer yourself for service.
That's it, exactly.
And I'm so glad that you are offering so that there's a choice. There is something about having choices in this world. Could you tell me a little bit about where you stand on health care and education? Those are the things that I'm hearing folks talk a lot about.
As am I. With regard to health care, this nation is the most prosperous nation in the world. Even in the situation that we find ourselves today, this country is so rich and has so much wealth. I think it is absolutely sinful that we have any of our citizens that don't have adequate health care. With all the freedoms that we have to offer in this great nation, if you don't have your health, those freedoms don't mean anything. You can't play, you can't work, you need your health. And so that is my primary focus, making sure that all of our citizens in this nation have adequate and affordable health care. And we see during the time of this pandemic just how critical that is. But I was talking about health care at the time of my filing before the pandemic, came upon us, but it's critically important. And where education is concerned, we all understand that education allows you to grow. There's a mobility. Families are able to achieve so much and to provide so much better when there is a basis in education. And so I am so dismayed and disheartened to see so many of our young people play by the rules, do everything we've asked of them, go and get higher education, only to be saddled with massive debt. That ought not to be. There are solutions and things that can be done, I believe, to educate our young people without leaving them saddled with large amounts of debt.
Well, they would certainly welcome that. It provides a certain type of freedom when you're not saddled or carrying that debt with you. You can do more, be more creative, be more productive, and not just be a consumer but a producer, and change the way your communities look and our country.
What touches me, and all you said is absolutely true, but one of the facts that I am mindful of is that massive debt limits in many ways the opportunities that you are able to accept. I don't care, you might want to be a public servant like me, but if your debt is so high, you've got to go for the position that's going to pay you the best. And so we need good lawyers that are willing to represent the poor and the underserved. We need nurses, teachers. We need folks to be willing to go into occupations that, unfortunately, we're not yet paying them what they're worth to us.
I agree with that, and my children would agree with that as well. I remember my son coming to me once saying, "Mom, I want to take you and Dad out to dinner." And we were like, "First of all, take us out to dinner? You're paying? Wait a minute, let's get our coats and go now."
Yes.
And as we were sitting across the table from him, he says, "I wanted to thank you all." And we're like, "Okay, we're not quite sure where this is going. Thank us for what?" He says, "All of my friends are having to take any kind of job because they have $160,000 of debt to $200,000 going to SCAD." And he says, "I don't have that. And I understand what that freedom will now allow me to do. I can actually pursue the things that mean something to me." So to that point, that dinner was about that you just said. Let me ask you, as we turn the corner a little bit on talking about debt, how do you engage in philanthropic giving to your community?
Primarily it is through my church. I take tithing very seriously. And then when and if I have additional resources, I invest them in the projects that are important to me, and those usually involve children because they are our future. And an investment made in them, there is no bad investment in our children, whether it's the time that we devote to them, and often that's what they really need.
And what they're asking for.
And what they're asking for, you're right. So that's what I do. And I invest my time in them, and so whether it's going into a school or showing up on the first day of school to encourage them to do their best and let them know that, follow the rules and work hard. It's good out here. And what has been done for me by our master upstairs can be and will be done for you too. And so
we need that encouragement. We need that inspiration. Those are the kinds of things that many children across the board, across socioeconomic status, across race, ethnicity, they're saying they want to hear, they need to have. And so those are the ways that we can all invest in our community. Thank you for just telling us that and sharing that with us. That's something that we can start doing right now, immediately. Is there anything you would like to say to those who will have the opportunity to consider you as their choice for representation for the 8th Congressional District of North Carolina?
Yes, I'd like to point out that my life experience isn't particularly special, that I was able to take advantage of opportunities that were available. I'd like to see those same kinds and even different opportunities available for the people throughout the district. And so that's what I would be working for. So the opportunities, whether we're talking about in a particular county that lacks an economic engine, that's what I want to do. I want to go to Washington to help to create economic opportunities throughout our district. I don't know if you realize, but I'm going to use Cumberland as an example, but it's happening throughout the district in our small towns. Too many areas in our district are experiencing a loss of population because what's happening is the jobs that were once there that provided for families to give their children what they needed. So they would educate the children, were able to send them off to college. The children aren't coming home. And why are they not coming home? Because there aren't any jobs, there aren't any opportunities for them. And then what happens after that is, then when mom and dad want to be close to the grandchildren, or when they start having health issues themselves and they need to more care or attention from the children, they go to where they are. And so many of our communities, too many of them in the district, are not only not gaining population, but they're losing 2 generations. You know, the generation that did not come home, and then the older generation that left to go be near their children. And we've got to reverse that, and it can be reversed. And so we need to create opportunities of employment opportunities. And that can come through, I believe, you have to have the necessary infrastructure to attract business. And so in some parts of our district, we don't have sufficient broadband. I mean, what industry, what businesses are going to consider
They won't.
Coming there? Not to mention the people that reside there need it. Look at where we are with education now. Many of them are having to do their education over the internet and online. And so I want the people of the district to understand that Pat is aware of the fact that we need more economic opportunities here in our district, and I want them to know that I'm going to work for those.
Well, I thank you for sharing that for us. And this is my last question. Generally, I ask about philanthropy at the very end, but we've already worked that in. I want to know if there's a little girl out there that is listening to you today, like I was in 1986, and she is saying, but I still don't know if I can do it. I heard what her daddy said. I still don't know because I don't have everything I need right now as a child. How can I really have that hope? What can we give her to hold on to?
I would say to that young lady, first of all, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. And then I would assure her that you just do your part. You work hard. You play by the rules. You learn all that you can. And I promise you, I guarantee you that there will be somebody out there, and in most instances, a number of somebodies that will be there to help you. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Thank you. This is Front Porch Conversations. We've had the distinct pleasure to talk with the Honorable Patricia Timmons-Goodson today. It's been remarkable. We've learned some information about who she is, where she comes from. We've got some information we can take back from her father. But more importantly, we have a choice this year coming up. She is running for North Carolina's 8th Congressional District. There is a choice. And remember, the choice is always yours. Thank you.